Alright, so what about hating robots?
I hate robots just like I hate my computer if it makes me reinstall Windows.
I don't think a computer and a robot are technically the same.
My computer is just a robot under control. The only robot I like. A robot is any machine that does work, right? Technically processing is work. Just not the way people think it is.
Well, I guess that's right. When we think robots, we think Johnny Five from Short Circuit.
Honestly, when I think of robots, I think of 2B, but that's just my weeb brain ruining everything.
Has anyone in the audience seen Short Circuit? Just curious question. Okay,
I'll admit I haven't seen it either. That film's from like the 80s, isn't it?
Yeah, it's from the 80s, and it's so 80s that there's one character who's Indian, and you can tell it's just a white guy with like a darkened face.
I'm pretty sure Indians are actually like that, but okay.
No.
No, never mind. I'm looking at a picture of it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Is this some sort of precursor Wall-E?
You know, it kind of is, because I mean they look very similar. Like look up Wally and look up Johnny Five from Short Circuit, and you'll see that they're very similar, and they also have very similar personalities.
Who made Wall-E again?
Who made Wally? Well, Pixar.
Disney?
Yeah,
Huh?
Disney Pixar.
Disney ripping off a previously existing story? Huh? That's crazy.
How unheard of.
Anyway, who wants to talk about a bizarrely sanitized version of classic fairy tales? I don't understand it. Fairy tales, at least the original versions, existed because terrifying kids is a great way to get them to stop doing something.
I mean, that's
But
true.
then, like, the Disney versions come out, and it's like, and this character does something bad, but she gets away with it scot-free. What's that trying to teach kids?
Yeah, and also let's not forget how grim the grim fairy tales were.
Right. I remember from the Cinderella version, from the Grimm's Cinderella, the stepsisters cut off parts of her feet in order to fit into a slipper.
Mm-hmm.
Incidentally, no one noticed until the talking bird showed up, but fairy tales.
In Snow White, the evil queen was forced to dance with red hot iron shoes strapped to her feet. She literally danced herself to death.
You think for fairy tales that are like, no, a story that's like a fairy tale, but for adults, like, don't do this or this exaggerated thing will happen to you. I guess Lovecraft is kind of like that, just with more questionable messages.
I mean, yeah, if you think about it. I mean, the whole point of Lovecraftian / cosmic horror was, oh, everything beyond what we know about the solar system is vast and unknowable. It's the dangerous, spooky woods, but in space. So now...
Don't be Irish or you'll turn into a fish. Speaking of Lovecraft, does that remind you of anything? Maybe a certain indie video game currently in development?
Well, of course, I was going to bridge the gap. I mean, the whole concept of the infinitum is basically just the unknown. For those who have played Odd Infinitum, the infinitum is just a blanket term for the unexplored depth of space. Full of both wonder and horror. Could contain treasure, could contain horrific monsters, could contain both. It's
mostly horror, though.
Yeah, it's all shrouded in mystery. And things that are mysterious are attractive to the brave and sometimes foolish explorer.
The difference between a brave man and an idiot is how successful his exploration is.
That's true.
Dr. Livingstone, he's brave because he survived. If he got killed in the Congo, he'd be foolish. I mean, that's just how it is.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of Lovecraft and tomb prospectors, the boss in Bloodborne, Rom the Vacuous Spider, his name in Japanese literally translates to Rom the Stupid Spider.
Not a bit more rude than stupid, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It is more rude. I'm not going to say it, but it carries the same social weight as calling someone R-worded. So
the mean version of, well, one of the many mean versions of the word.
Yeah.
I'm sure the audience has figured it out.
Yeah, the most extreme way of calling someone stupid, in my opinion at least.
Maybe not that, because I'd say that's like the second meanest thing you can say to call someone stupid, because you could always call them a game journalist.
Dean Takahashi single-handedly made game journalists a laughingstock.
I'll be completely honest though. Any game journalist that wants to write about Odd Infinitum, I love you very much. I'll name my firstborn after you.
Watch as a game journalist can't. They've failed to complete the tutorial. Just watch.
There's only really one thing you need to look out for.
Which is?
Big laser.
Yeah.
Didn't we deliberately design it so that the big laser will probably get most people on their first run?
Not anymore. I've actually added a visual telegraph, so you actually see like a square box expand to the range of the laser, then it fires. So it's a bit more fair. There's that, or you could rely on sound cues, but not everyone plays with headphones, or a person is deaf.
Sound cues in space don't make that much sense anyway.
Well,
Play on for the true Odd Infinitum experience.
well, it's sci-fi. You can suspend your disbelief to a degree.
I suspended my disbelief when I got attacked by a giant spinning robot.
Are you talking about the Red Fleet? Because that happens.
I mean, a lot of the bosses are pretty out there. And again, it's Cosmic Horror. Anyway, when it comes to suspension of disbelief, I, as the lead and pretty much only story writer in the crew, I'm doing my best to make everything as believable enough as possible. Like for example, let's take a bit of the backstory of the game. Odd Infinitum is a game about fighting bosses first and foremost. So while the backstory is definitely important, Lee and I don't really believe that it should be in your face. So if you want to know a bit about the story, you're going to have to kind of dig on your own. Some of you have probably figured this out already, but I would definitely suggest going to your inventory a few times. Let's talk about things that just aren't in the game at all. Like, have you ever wondered why every human character's name is either distinctly American or distinctly Slavic? Well, there's probably a reason for that. And also, it seems like Earth's been completely united, so much so that humanity's biggest problems is managing its space empire. If the two main cultures are American and Slavic, probably Russian, and Earth seems to be completely united, how do you think that happens? I can think of a way that happens, but I don't think it's important enough to put that in the game. So, whatever you loyal fans think the backstory is, it probably works. Like, do you think Miyazaki actually knows what's going on in Dark Souls?
The thing about Hidetaka Miyazaki, to answer your question, no, I don't think he does, but I think that's done on purpose. He actually grew up in a poor household, so he would read whatever was available, and he really enjoyed reading Western mythology. But the thing is, his English was not good enough to fully comprehend what he was reading, so he basically filled in the missing parts with his own idea, and that was the inspiration behind Dark Souls item descriptions. Yes, there's a basic outline of a story, but for the most part, you have to fill it in with your own interpretation.
It wasn't just any story, though. It was specifically Lord of the Rings. Although, to be fair, I speak English fluently, and I still don't get some of Lord of the Rings stuff. If I make a concrete statement about whether or not I like the poetry, or specifically the elvish stuff in it, that's probably gonna get a fantasy hitman sent after me.
This is definitely gonna get a fantasy hitman sent after me. I have not read any Lord of the Rings all the way through, and I remember seeing the movies.
No, I'm gonna stop you right there. If you say you haven't read the books but you've seen the movies, in like 5 minutes, the car full of elves is gonna pull up to your house and they're gonna say, "Drive by, heathen."
Well, I'm not gonna say one's better than the other. I'm just saying I haven't read the books. I have seen the movies. I'm not gonna say which one's better.
Personally, I like the books, but that's just because that's mostly because it has more story. Well, I like it when a lot of things happen. And when I was younger, I basically had infinite time. I spent a lot more time reading than I did talking to people, which may or may not have been a mistake depending on your perspective.
I spent most of my childhood playing video games, specifically N64 video games, specifically Star Fox 64, which also inspired Odd Infinitum. Audience members and future players, try to find all of the Star Fox 64 references in Odd Infinitum. Many of them are dialogue references, some of them are visual references.
And there are a lot of other references too.
Of course.
Now, we try not to be too oversaturated with references because, then it starts being more comedic, but there are a decent amount of references. Nothing too in your face, although there is definitely one.
Yeah, one.
We did decide to throw subtlety out the window for once, for one of them.
If you're referring to the reference that I'm thinking of, you have to be into very team-focused multiplayer games.
I'll be completely honest. I don't think you even need to be in that certain video game in order to get it. Like, sure, its fan base may basically be a fortress of gatekeeping, but it's definitely pretty popular too. I
mean, true, but for the longest time I hadn't heard of Team Fortress 2, and mainly because I played on consoles only. Yes.
Oh, come on, we set up at fun little hints. of team-based games, Phantom's a Fortress, but it's well known too, and then he went go and save the entire thing.
Yeah, it's just like, audience, I hope you get it by now. I hope you get the game we're referring to. So if you remember 3 of the classes from that game, you'll know it when you see it.
You will definitely know it when you see it. But anyway, we keep talking about things that are currently in the game. What do we have that isn't in yet? I say we reached about the halfway point with bosses, right?
Yeah, the demo that has been released now, play it now, contains the early game bosses.
Play it now at www.oddinfinitum.com.
Oxoniangames.com/oddinfinitum. But yes, the demo contains the first 3 bosses, and a surprise 4th, so it's enough to whet a player's appetite. But here's one thing that most of the audience might not be aware of, and hence the title of this podcast episode, which, no joke, I came up with like 5 minutes before it started. The idea started when I was an undergrad in college, way back in 2016. It was an exercise in wanting to make a game, because I enjoyed programming and just wanted to work on games. So I got GameMaker 8.1 and made a very basic 2-level space shooter, side-scrolling. And at a certain point, well, I didn't believe in source control at that time, so the files got corrupted and the entire project was lost. But around that time, I was playing a game called Cuphead. And if you haven't played Cuphead, it is a boss rush game, meaning there's a series of levels and each level is just a boss battle. So I looked at that and thought, I want to do that too. So I remade Odd Infinitum. Actually came up with the title Odd Infinitum around the time the files got corrupted. So I remade Odd Infinitum with completely new gameplay with a boss rush level structure in mind. And basically from there I just kept iterating to get to where it is now. So that's the story of how it started. So let's circle back to things that players might not be aware of.
Well, if we're talking about Smash players, they might not be aware of what SOAP is, but what might Odd Infinitum players not know about? Oh, I know. You know General Henderson, the funny little general guy who for some reason dresses like Fidel Castro?
Was it you that pointed it out?
I think it was me, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, I had an idea for... Okay, fun fact. This is a Star Fox 64 reference. General Henderson is a hard-boiled version of General Pepper from Star Fox 64. General Pepper is very jolly, like, oh, thank you, Star Fox.
He's also pretty jolly.
Yeah, jolly and jowly. Well, he is a dog. I'm not sure what kind of dog, but a dog with the hanging jowls. So I basically wanted to take General Pepper and make a more hard-boiled version of him, and that's how the idea of General Henderson came about. Like I wanted him to be like older, but not like elderly, and like have an air of just old intimidation about him. And I conveyed that to Danny, the Odd Infinitum artist, and he made General Henderson as he is, and I liked it. But then Crab pointed out that he looks exactly like Fidel Castro, and once I saw that, I could not unsee it, but I wasn't changing the design.
I'll be honest, when I first heard about the design process behind General Henderson, I thought he was gonna come out looking like Gehrman from Bloodborne. Which honestly might make things a bit too obvious.
I mean, he is kind of a Gehrman figure, as in
He's the old guy who serves mission control.
Yeah, and he's a mentor figure. Yeah, but Gehrman is old as in elderly. I didn't want that old. I wanted to be old, but not like completely. What's the word?
Old enough that he might retire soon instead of retire soon.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Speaking of old, how old's Magellan?
Why do you want to know that? but to answer your question, I imagine early 30s.
Nah, I'd say she definitely looks older than she actually is. Being the chief scientist is definitely difficult work, especially when you start fighting people who ignore the laws of science.
Well, I guess that's true. So, late 30s?
Yeah, who really knows? All I could say is, life sure is tough for her.
That's true. Oh, here's a question. How old do you think Burnham is?
Burnham's an alien. He probably has a weird life cycle. Who knows?
Yeah, spoiler alert, he's like 250 years old.
I have no idea how old he is, and frankly, I can't imagine the USDF cares either.
For some reason, I just got reminded of Crush from Finding Nemo. 150, dude, but I'm still young. Which is actually not an exaggeration. Some sea turtles can live up to 400 years old.
I am dead serious, though. The USDF probably doesn't care about the ages of their aliens.
I mean, yeah, you're right.
Like, if you're not gonna die in the next 10 years, sure, you can join.
Just like, oh, you're still here? Okay.
Keep at it.
Yeah, keep at it.
I'm sure that if Burnham was to just die, they'd probably bring in someone else to replace him immediately.
That's true. They'll find an identical plant alien hybrid.
There probably aren't that many plant alien hybrids. I'm honestly impressed by the amount of humanoid aliens. There are probably a lot of aliens in the human empire. I'm guessing the ones that look human have the best chance of getting good jobs.
Yeah, like I'm about to spoil a character. Like
Don't spoil that one. Just keep talking about Burnham.
Well, I'm just gonna say there's one alien character that is very humanoid.
And this character is significantly more better employed than anyone else would be.
That is true.
I don't know, someone in high command probably doesn't even know she is an alien.
I mean,
Now, for jobs that suck, though, that's definitely a thing for aliens. Like mining. Mining is awful.
your real name or your Discord name?
What was that?
Your
No, mining, not.
Oh,
not mining,
I thought you
sorry.
said my name is horrible. I'm like, wait, what about?
I promised to reveal my secret identity in the stream, but that comes later.
Okay. Yeah. Mining is horrible. Well, actually, salt mining, I learned a while ago, is relatively safe compared to, like, coal mining.
Or sulfur mining.
Or, yeah, I was about to say, or sulfur mining.
If you hate your life, magnesium mining is where it's at.
Oh, gosh.
It's like, hey guys, you wanna mine raw gunpowder?
Well, also think about this. Rare earth metals are common on asteroids. How many well, granted, a lot of rare earth metals are synthetic, but a lot of radioactive rare earth metals are naturally occurring. What was it? Uranium is naturally occurring, but anything above uranium is synthetic, I think.
I think so. I'm not a chemist, so it's been 2 years since I was in a chemistry class.
I mean, it's been longer than that for me. I last took chemistry in high school.
Yep, same for me.
But
First clue to my secret identity. I'm 19.
Well,
But anyway, asteroid mining. I
Yeah,
feel bad for any old people who have like a massive pile of gold, and it's like, this is my retirement plan. Then asteroid mining becomes a thing. It's like, oh, that's great. Gold's cheaper than cheese.
yeah. Neil deGrasse Tyson actually predicted that the first trillionaire is the person who figures out how to mine asteroids. Granted, I'm not saying he's wrong. I respect his expertise, but I tend to take the opinions of celebrity scientists with a grain of salt.
Everyone knows the first trillionaire is gonna be the guy who makes anime real.
Who brings anime catgirls to real life?
I'm gonna be honest, for everyone banking on catgirls, if real women don't talk to you, what makes you think one of yours will?
Yeah, exactly.
Incidentally, that's why I've been coating myself in catnip recently.
You know, part of the character design of Odd Infinitum, for the female characters in Odd Infinitum, I tend to think, I wonder if Rule 34 is going to get a hold of them.
I hope not.
Well,
Then again, if it does, that means people are playing her games, so...
yeah,
yes.
exactly. It's messed up. Well, depending on the art, it's messed up, but it is evidence that people pay attention to it.
I'm a good Christian boy. Know that if any of you make smut, I will not read. I will not look at it.
No swearing in my Christian Minecraft server.
No, it's actually Orthodox, so there's gonna be a lot of swearing. Oh, by the way, speaking of Orthodox, that reminds me. What's Boris's deal? Why is he so upset all the time?
Well, he drinks a lot and he's got unresolved trauma, and also he's a Slav.
We're college students. Join the club, Boris.
I realize I just said the same thing twice. He drinks a lot and he's a Slav. That's very redundant.
No. If he's Russian, then he probably drinks kvass, which actually isn't that alcoholic.
Drinks what?
I think it's pronounced kvass. I don't know. It's KVASS.
Oh, okay. Truth be told, I didn't actually think of a specific country of origin. Well, yeah, I didn't think of a beverage, but I didn't think of a specific country of origin for Boris. I just wanted to make him Slavic and human, because I thought having a very dry, sardonic Slav teaching you the mechanics of the game would be entertaining. But fun fact, this is another little backstory of Odd Infinitum. Boris actually was not intended to be Slavic. He got his name, this is yet another Star Fox reference, for free. There's a character in Star Fox 64, I think he's actually a robot, named Rob. I think he actually does all the maintenance work on the Great Fox, which is the carrier ship that the Star Fox team travels around in. So I took Rob, inverted it to make Bor, B-O-R, then I thought, oh, Boris, there we go. And then one of my friends saw the name Boris and was like, is he a Slav? And I was like, well, he is now.
Country of origin probably doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
In the story, Earth's been united for probably a very long time.
Yeah,
planet of origin's probably more important.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Even then, nationalism is so high that most people will just say, I'm from the USDF. Or not the USDF, I'm just from the US, United Systems.
Yeah, I was about to say, Odd Infinitum takes place in the year 3065, so yeah, planet of origin is more talked about than nation of origin. It's just like, oh, I'm from this continent. Where's that continent? Oh, it's on Somnus. Okay, I get it now.
I don't think people would talk to anyone from Somnians. Most of the people who can live on Somnus are aliens because, dark planet, never has sun, probably very cold. You have to be specially adapted to live there, like a deep sea animal or like an Arctic creature.
I mean, yeah, Somnians are very pale because they don't get sunlight, and also very resistant to cold.
They also have exceptionally good eyesight.
That's
or at
true.
Least relatively good eyesight. What classifies as standard there is like extremely evolved anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that place has a lot of geothermal activity though, because cold surface, but still normal warm underground.
I mean, yeah, they have to get power somehow, because solar power's out of the question. What other planets?
Maybe wind power? Oh, whatever planets.
Well, I'm trying to think of all the alien characters, not going to spoil. A particular...
Burnham comes from a big... I don't really know how to explain it, it's just kind of a boring planet. It's a big savanna, there's a lot of sun, and lots of movement. It's definitely a type of planet where any civilization's got to be nomadic.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel bad for Burnham. His species evolved to be extremely endurant, and this is for the purpose of traveling around the planet, staying healthy. And then the USDF realized, hey, he's also pretty good if you just stick him in one room all day.
Yeah, put him in a room where the sun never stops shining, and you don't need to feed him. Well, you do need to feed him to keep him awake.
That's where the fast food comes from.
Mm-hmm.
I'm honestly amazed Mikhail isn't as fat as Burnham. Either he hasn't been eating, or something's wrong with him.
I mean, could be like me and just have stupidly high metabolism.
Who knows? Mikhail seems normal enough, but she honestly can't... But I doubt anyone can hang around Burnham all day and not go somewhat crazy.
Well, yeah, imagine the smell.
I would recommend not wording it that way, because that is a bit of a meme.
One time I had a professor in undergrad who specialized in VR, and I asked him, how long do you predict being able to smell virtual smells? Like being able to smell an in-game environment. How far off is that technology? And he's like, oh, decades.
I don't think so.
Well, maybe not decades, but 10 to 15 years. You'd have to find some... I mean, in theory, it's simple. You attach some device to your nose and that directly stimulates the olfactory bulb. But how to specifically figure out which stimuli indicate which smell is the challenge.
You could always just have a device that actually releases smells into your house, and the stimuli is whatever programmer wants it to be. Of course, I guarantee you this will immediately be used to play pranks on people. Like, you're playing my game in smell-o-vision? Well, I sure hope you like skunk. Or I sure hope you like chloroform.
Oh no.
Chloroform is a smell.
Well, yeah, but despite what you see in movies, chloroform is not instant. You smell it and then you pass out. It takes, like 2 to 3 minutes of smelling chloroform to pass out? I don't know. I'm not saying from experience.
All I know is if you're getting chloroformed, you have bigger problems than what does it smell like.
I mean, yeah, that's true. If you want to replicate the experience of...
I would not suggest finishing this sentence. I'm just going to stop you right now.
No.
Don't teach our audience how to replicate chloroform.
Not chloroform, but if you want to fully immerse yourself in the experience of being inside the comms tower with Burnham, it's simple. Just don't shower for a month.
Or go to a Smash Bros. Tournament.
True. Or an anime con. Or is that the same thing?
Yeah, it's mostly the same people.
Yeah, I haven't been to either, so I wouldn't know. I remember seeing, it was some Twitter meme. Like, one person was saying that female deodorant is just a product of the patriarchy or some malarkey like that. Just like, deodorant is like a scam used to control us. Just some very off-the-wall thing. And the response was, you will eat those words when you go to an anime convention.
Sounds about right.
Like, what is it with anime nerds and not bathing? Like, do they just not care, or do they somehow think it's just like a must?
Honestly, I have no idea. I kind of like anime, but I also regularly bathe. Oh, by the way, our current audience has doubled. Give it up for Tree Gone.
Yeah, Trigon. Welcome. I'm not sure when you joined, but
We just joined.
No, I saw him like mid my speech. Yeah, we were talking about the different planets, and that somehow segued to smells in games.
Right. Let's get back to planets real quick.
So
we mentioned that Burnham comes from a savanna planet, and Somnus is a very cold and dark planet. There is one more alien. Is he in the game yet?
Not yet, but his quest line is still going to be implemented.
Can we talk about him if we just don't talk about the quest line?
Sure. Do you want to reveal his name? It's a hilarious name.
There are 3 alien characters in the game. I know that you've met 2, and there's a third one named, wait for it. I'd play a drum roll if I had a soundboard, but his name is Sned. That's S-N-E-D, Sned.
Yep.
And he's the head of mining.
And picture this. He looks like a giant snail.
He's definitely a charming fella.
Well,
pretty charming.
I mean, in appearance maybe, but in actions no.
Well, in personality-wise, he's definitely got to be charming. If he wasn't, people wouldn't do his questline, now would they?
Oh, that's true.
Anyway.
So what you're saying is
you're probably thinking, why head of mining? What's he gonna do? Well, I can't quite tell you exactly everything he's going to do. He could serve as a merchant. He could serve as something else. But you should remember that the very first boss of the game, the Core Destroyer that I have personally destroyed 6 times now, is originally a mining ship. So I'm sure if a mining ship went rogue and blew up a planet, then people in charge of that ship would definitely get in trouble. It might make them act desperate. So keep an eye out for that.
Core Destroyer is hard. Good.
Real quick, chat. Don't cover yourself in WD-40 unless you want to catch fire. Where I am, it's like 108 degrees outside. If I was covered in WD-40, I would be on fire right now.
Well, you live pretty close to Death Valley, right?
Yeah, I live on the other side of the mountain range. Instead of being one mountain range away from the coastal breeze, Death Valley is 2 mountain ranges away.
Ah, fun.
But yeah, very close to Death Valley. I think it's like 120 degrees. I've never been there though.
Damn.
I have been through the Mojave a couple times, and that was bad enough.
I mean, I drove through most of the Mojave, well, not most of it, but a good portion of the Mojave Desert when I went on a 3-day excursion from Mississippi to Nevada.
You know what they say about the Mojave? Patrolling the Mojave makes you wish for a nuclear winter.
I mean, don't they test nuclear weapons out there?
I think so, but I'm making a Fallout New Vegas reference.
So, yes.
Well, basically. The funny thing about Fallout New Vegas is that no nukes even hit the area you play in. It's just that South Nevada is just that bad.
I remember as soon as I drove through Las Vegas and then just kept going, it was so desolate. If you haven't driven through that part of the U.S., it's just like there's no civilization anywhere close. Like I remember getting out at a campsite because it had a rest stop. I do recommend it because visually it's very striking. But when I stepped out of my car and just looked around, the absolute stillness and quiet was very hard to describe. Just like no sounds of any cities or urban areas or people, just like nothing. I listened to that and I thought, now I know why the movie The Hills Have Eyes takes place in Nevada.
I gotta be honest, like Western United States is just a pretty weird place, everything west of the Mississippi.
Yep.
Because you just have these massive cities and absolutely nothing in between them until you get to California. Like Europe's not like that. Like you drive 15 minutes in Europe, you're in another town. Congratulations.
Yep.
I think you have to go into like France and parts of France and Germany in order to actually get into something resembling countrysides. And I don't think there's anywhere else in the world that's kind of like it because, like South and Central America, there are a lot of big cities and they're all kind of connected. But the area in between the cities in South and Central America definitely aren't empty. Like you wander out of a city in Nevada, you're in a desert, that's cool. Yep. You wander out of a city in Brazil, you've made a good choice, but you're also probably fighting off cannibals and crocodiles. Right, and someone in our audience just said China's pretty deserted outside of the coast. I've definitely heard that.
Well,
I can't say I know much about China outside of like northern China, around the Gobi Desert, though.
there is one guy in this server who is Brazilian, so he could give a good opinion on what Brazil's like when you step outside an urban area.
Do you know what part of Brazil he's from?
No. Although I looked up a time zone map, I was surprised that Brazil is a lot more east. Like, the most western part of Brazil lines up with US Eastern time zone. I thought there was more overlap longitudinally between the US and Brazil, but apparently there's not.
It is a bit weird when you think of stuff like that. Like, if you look at a world map, like the one that's like a rectangular one, you'll see that Spain is about as north as Maine. And thanks to the wonders of ocean currents and breezes, it doesn't make sense. Like, like Maine is cold and unpleasant, Spain is warm, and it just doesn't make sense. The only thing worse than how longitude and latitude work is how time zones work. Time zones are arbitrary. they don't make any sense at all, and they don't need to make sense. Like, China is one massive time zone.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have problems? I honestly don't know. All the important places in China are all in one would-be time zone, but still. Like, Spain and France are in the same time zone. Brazil is not, or not Brazil, Britain is not in the same time zone as France. It's in the same time zone as Portugal. Doesn't make sense. No. Doesn't matter. I don't know.
Yeah, and meanwhile...
Curse you, Abraham Lincoln.
And meanwhile, Russia has like 11 time zones.
And only 2 of them actually get used.
Yeah, everything west of the Ural Mountains.
Oh, and also Vladivostok, don't forget that.
Oh, yeah.
Now here's something funny. It appears that Belarus and Saudi Arabia are in the same time zone. Yeah, time zones are a mess. Imagine how bad timekeeping is going to get when you go to space.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if someone just said, screw it, and everyone was given the same clock. And it's like, okay, you wake up at 3 a.m. now.
Realize that, depending on a planet's elemental makeup, well, not just that, but for many reasons, planets rotate at different speeds. So, what is it? A day on Jupiter is like 10 Earth hours?
That doesn't sound right, but
I mean,
I get what you're trying to say.
It's probably not 10 hours, but it's short compared to an Earth day. You wouldn't think a planet as big as Jupiter would rotate as fast, but it does.
Well, if it didn't rotate as fast, maybe it would suck less. I'm calling you out, Jupiter. You're a low-grade planet. Saturn does what you do, and it looks cool.
Yep.
Man, you know what's a high-tier planet? Planet X. Planet X that's where it's at. It's such a cool planet. It can't even be bothered to be in the solar system most of the time.
Okay, is Planet X actually used in the scientific community, or is it just, hey, it's this extrasolar body that doesn't have a name yet?
It's a hypothetical planet. It's not like a weird occult thing like, we're orbited by the secret planet Pyboria or something. It is something that's probably respected in the scientific community. It's not some random nonsense a schizophrenic man made up.
Well, you could say that about a lot of Lovecraft stories.
Right. What the? Apparently people are calling Planet X Planet 9 now.
What?
Oh, no, you don't. You don't get to just invalidate Pluto. Pluto is a planet. Live with its scientific community.
It's a dwarf planet, but that still qualifies it as a planet.
Dwarf humans are counted as regular humans.
Exactly. But as far as being a planet compared to the other 8, it's completely unlike it. Therefore, it's a dwarf planet, not a planet.
Well, by that same logic, Titan's also a planet, because it's probably the size of Pluto.
Well...
Actually, let me look it up.
Well...
Actually, Titan is larger than Mercury.
Well, regardless, they're all satellites. Yeah, they all orbit something. Titan orbits Saturn. Saturn orbits the Sun. So, could you think of Titan as just a planet, but of Saturn?
300,000 people orbit Pokimane. That doesn't make them more or less human. Okay, maybe... I might have to eat my words on that one. Speaking of planet, on the subject of planets, what type of planet do you think the alien invaders come from?
That's the point. It's not stated in the story.
It's probably a really crazy planet.
Again, not to spoil anything, but the place where you fight the final mandatory boss of the game The area is literally called Alien Homeworld, just because it's so unknown that it's just given a generic label.
Yeah, it'll probably get an actual label when it gets blown up.
Yeah.
Although to be fair, most of the actual alien citizens of the United Systems don't really have labels either.
I mean, that's true.
Like Burnham species has a neat translation to English, specifically page, as in someone who goes around and heralds the night. So we just call him that. Can't you gotta get an actual name? Sned, the snail we talked about earlier. His species has a name, but snails don't exactly need to speak English, and something tells me he wouldn't be happy if his species got an English name.
Realize with a lot of aliens that the species name may not even be pronounceable by humans. Most of the language used by the Great Old Ones in the Lovecraft mythos is completely impronounceable by humans, and thus runes are used as shorthand for it. Like, I actually heard someone, like, do a more accurate pronunciation of the name Cthulhu, and I'm not going to imitate it. I tried, but it's very hard to do. But, like, the way he made it sound, like, he made it actually sound like how a giant creature with tentacles on its face would pronounce his own name.
Actually, there is a solution. Just listen to Larry King. He's basically Cthulhu. I wouldn't be surprised if he had tentacles coming out of his face.
Well, he's also dead.
Cthulhu's technically dead.
Well,
but hey, some things may be so old that even death might die.
Isn't the thing with, like, there are cases of protagonists in Lovecraftian short stories where they actually manage to defeat a particular Great Old One. I don't think you actually kill a Great Old One or an elder god or anything like that. You simply just banish it from its earthly realm. Like, it still exists nebulously.
Nebulously? Because it's space.
Well, yeah, most of the outer gods are in space.
I'm pretty sure it's like a Dragon Ball style tier list for various levels of power and weird creatures. Like, you got normal things, relatively normal things like fish people, easily killable. Shoggoths and star vampires, more difficult. And then you have old ones like Cthulhu, definitely difficult to kill, but
yep.
There have been a few cases of those guys getting killed. But like Elder Gods, nah, you're better off just waiting till it loses interest. I think there was one story where an Elder God could be killed if it very recently got summoned into the world. Because it'd be weak and could be destroyed. But the problem is, most Elder Gods, if he summoned into the real world, would kind of instantly destroy it. Like Azathoth, if he wakes up, he'd just explode.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't do that. To all you aspiring Cthulhu cultists out there, let it be known that if I don't like fish, you're probably gonna get killed, and if it's not by Cthulhu, it's gonna be by a hard-boiled detective who doesn't play by the rules.
Are you referring to the Sinking
That's
City?
That's your second clue to my secret identity.
I don't know if you're doing this on purpose, but you're making references to the Sinking City.
Yes, that is entirely my intention.
For those of you who haven't played the Sinking City, if you remember the Sherlock Holmes mystery game with as in you would turn around and he would just teleport to where you are. Same developers. I think they're called Frogware.
You kind of bugged out. He's talking about the game where Watson teleports and you're not looking at him.
Yeah. I think they're called Frogware. So basically they made a detective game, but themed around the shadow over Innsmouth. And those...
it's much better than the actual Call of Cthulhu video game.
That's true. Well, better, maybe, but scary, not really.
So that's kind of a problem with video games. It's difficult to make them scary.
That's the big difficulty with Lovecraftian horror, or cosmic horror. Cosmic horror thrives off the things that are unseen and unknowable and formless, but when you render something on a screen, it becomes seen, knowable, and formed.
Also from Bloodborne.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the two good examples of Lovecraftian horror in pop culture are Bird Box and John Carpenter's The Thing. With the latter, yes,
The latter's not scary anymore, thanks Among Us.
I mean, well, the thing about the thing, technically, well, it is visible and it is knowable, but it's so formless that you aren't exactly sure what you're looking at. And with Bird Box, for those who haven't seen Bird Box, basically the world's thrown into a panic because there's this thing that if people lay eyes on it, they instantly want to kill themselves. So that's why everyone's going around with blindfolds on.
In other words, a DeviantArt basically got a physical form.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you could imagine the creature being that, and you wouldn't be wrong, because the creature's never shown. It's just there, and its presence is felt.
If you imagine a creature, don't instantly try to kill yourself, and you can't if you haven't gotten it right.
I mean, in so many Lovecraft stories, simply laying eyes on the creature is enough to go mad. I really like in Bloodborne how you get insight simply from encountering a new boss or a new area for the first time. That is a really cool mechanic, because it shows that you're getting more enlightened, but also potentially more insane, simply by just encountering new and weird abominations.
If you encounter bosses in the order that I'm pretty sure they were intended to be encountered anyway, it also forms a storyline. Like, you get insight when you first see the cleric beast because you realize, hey, wait a second, things aren't supposed to be that big.
Yep.
And you get insight when Gascoigne transforms, and you don't really get insight from any of the other creatures like the cleric beast.
I think it's like you get 1 point of insight for encountering a boss, you get 2 points of insight for defeating a boss.
I think it changes depending on bosses, and you get 3 insight when you find the real world version of Hunter's Workshop.
Oh,
to
yeah,
be fair,
yeah.
I would also start tripping if I saw that place.
I mean, yeah, you're dreaming of a place and then you actually see the place in real life. Just imagine that.
What I don't understand though is how does looking at the cleric beast and realizing how big monsters can get, how does that make me able to perceive the doll? I don't understand that.
I mean,
one.
open for interpretation, pretty much.
Oh well.
Oh,
Let's get back to the whole Lovecraft is scary thing. I don't really think Lovecraft can be scary anymore because the Cthulhu mythos or Lovecraft mythos is just so well established that there are like ranked tiers of power and classification of all the creatures, and like that's why the SCP Foundation isn't scary. Like when every creature even in it is well documented and in the universe its threat's been mostly neutralized. It's just not really that scary. That's why one of the best the best SCP entries are like 096 because its whole thing is it will break out of captivity if someone sees its face. And there's this one story where some guy looked at a picture, and he was in the background, and he wasn't even visible. He was just like a tiny speck in the distance, and he still got attacked. Like, that's pretty scary.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, this image I'm looking at, it might have 096 in it. Like, that one's a pretty good one. But like 682, it's like, okay, it's a big unkillable lizard. And the statue one, it's like, okay, just don't blink while looking at it. That's an entire Doctor Who episode.
Ah.
That's kind of the problem with the Lovecraft mythos, because like stuff like people like Hastur and Azathoth and Nyarlathotep, they're in their own category, and it's understood that these guys are all powerful cosmic beings. They can't be killed. They have access to magic. And slightly below that are the old ones. They're smart, have weird technology, and all that. It's like that's just not really that scary. So that's why Odd Infinitum, I try to make it so that while we have clear Lovecraft inspiration, like extremely clear Lovecraft inspiration, you can probably look at something and figure out what inspired it, but I try to make it different enough that it's still unknown. Like there's this one character that is very clearly supposed to be a major Lovecraft mythos character, but it's different enough that you don't actually know what to expect. Like, you could look at it for like 5 seconds and instantly realize, yes, I know who this is supposed to be. And then he does something that you wouldn't expect him to do. I'm rather proud of that one, and I think that's one of the next bosses to be released, actually.
Well, the next after the next, because one boss is currently in development, so it's the one after that, sequentially.
Alright.
I just remembered another good modern adaptation of a cosmic horror. It's a short work of Junji Ito, called The Enigma at Amigara Fault. Basically, there's an earthquake that uplifts a particular section of Earth, and it's interesting because that section of Earth is full of not just holes, but holes in the shape of people. And it gets spooky because certain individuals like hear a particular hole like beckoning them, and even more spooky, the hole is perfectly their shape, so it beckons them even more.
Right. Junji Ito's actually is pretty good at cosmic horror.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm actually reading Rumina right now. It's actually pretty close now that I think about it. It's this planet-destroying smaller planet. Yeah, that's pretty Lovecraftian, if you think about it. Just the root of cosmic horror is indifference, and just being a sheer reminder of humanity's powerlessness and insignificance.
If anyone's read the Junji Ito story, Gyo, I'd say that's probably one of the best Lovecraft works not made by Lovecraft or one of his friends. It's got all the right things, specifically fish monsters, humans morphing into monsters, and weird inexplicable things happening. The one thing I don't like about it is that the origin of the monsters is pretty well described.
Yeah, I'm reading Rumina right now. Next I have Uzumaki on my reading list. After that I'll get Gyo.
Now I'd like to point out that Lovecraft isn't the only thing that our story is taking inspiration from. If we were only taking inspiration from one thing, that'd just be kind of lazy. There are also a few Warhammer 40k elements.
True.
If anyone can catch them. They're not immediately obvious, but you will notice it later.
And as I mentioned before, there are Star Fox 64 references. The biggest reference being...
not references, but like story inspirations.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest inspiration is the mercenary mindset through which you play the game. You defeat large enemies to get a huge sum of cash, then you use that money to get better weapons and defeat more huge bosses. It's a classic gameplay loop.
Of course, since your character is part of an actual organized military force, we had to... How do I describe this? We had to, like, shape the story and the backstory of the force in a way that this sort of mindset and gameplay loop is justified. Like, if this was, like, the U.S. Air Force, the sort of behavior that your character just does as part of a gameplay loop, that wouldn't be acceptable at all.
Yep.
So we had to think, well, what type of organization would not only be okay with this, but would also encourage it? And that's how we came to the current iteration of the USDF.
Yeah, like I said, it's a mercenary mindset, not explicitly being a mercenary. Which I realized there... games where you either play as a mercenary or have a very mercenary mindset. In the Star Fox series, you are explicitly playing as a mercenary unit. Star Fox team are pilots for hire. Hence why at the end of Star Fox 64 you receive an invoice. And I didn't realize it for the longest time, but there's actually a conversion rate between score and the final amount that appears on the invoice. And I realized that the score is actually recorded as Venomians downed, or like Venomians killed or something. At that point I realized, oh, it's a body count. And then I learned that Star Fox team is a mercenary unit. Then it made sense at that point. And since I've been playing it a lot, The Witcher, as in the series, when you do monster contracts, that's kind of a mercenary mindset, because it's all about just completing a job in exchange for coin. And you just go from job to job with no attachment. No attachment, I feel, is a key element to that fantasy. So I thought about those. I thought along the lines of those games as I was designing the gameplay loop, primary and secondary. Primary being the moment-to-moment gameplay, as in shooting, dodging, trying to stay alive.
Don't get hit.
Yeah, don't get hit, basically. And the secondary loop being you defeat bosses to get weapons to defeat more bosses.
If you want a bit of gameplay advice from one of the lead developers, focus on defense more than offense.
Yes.
This is the Toho school of bullet hell. Every hit you land is probably going to be accidental. Of course, if you want a challenge, you can use precise weapons, but I really like stuff like the scatter laser, or whatever we end up calling it, refracted laser.
Yeah, refracted shots.
As long as I'm hitting, I can outlast the boss.
That's
Neither
true.
of us run out of ammo.
Then again, some bosses are big and stationary, like the Core Destroyer, so you just shoot vaguely in the direction and you're guaranteed to hit unless you're at the very top or very bottom of the screen.
Oh yeah, that's another bit of advice. Don't immediately go for the corners.
Right.
Because if you're in the corner, there's only one way to dodge. So, yeah, don't. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being Toho and 1 being fighting games, how important or how precise are hitboxes in this game, would you say?
The thing about hitboxes in shmups and bullet hell games, hitboxes are small for the player and for projectiles, and large for enemies. Because dodging is a huge focus, you don't want the case where the player goes, how on earth did that hit me? So you make both the player's hitbox and the projectile's hitbox smaller than they may seem, so the edges of both the sprites could pass next to each other and it's not registered as a hit.
If you want an in-game explanation, you're in space. It's a 3D axis.
Sure, you could think of it that way.
I should point out, on the subject of playstyle though, if you want the true USDF experience, be extremely aggressive. In fact, if you get yourself killed, you come back to life. Just remember that no one else does. Maybe that's why Boris is so depressed. He is the one training pilots, and they always seem to get themselves killed in stupid ways.
I wonder how that...
Imagine how many stupid deaths... Imagine every stupid death you have in-game, and remember that Boris has seen it.
That's a good question, now that I think about it. How long has Boris been resigned as a pilot?
Well, that's the fun thing about Slavic people. They seem to exist in a perpetual state of old, but also young enough to do things. It's like every Slavic man, from puberty till the day he dies, is in a perpetual state of 40 years old with the energy of a 20-year-old.
Keep that in mind as you write dialogue for Boris.
Of course.
Like,
honestly, there's much we can learn from the Slavic people.
True.
They certainly have it better than Americans. Like, imagine all the sucky things you think of whenever you think of, like, Russia or Poland. And just remember, America's not exactly immune to that either.
Exactly.
It's like, we are poor, have no food, and our government hates us. But it's also 110 degrees instead of -10.
Of all the places I traveled, I don't think I've been to a Slavic country. Like, I've met Slavic people in real life, but I haven't been to a Slavic country.
The only countries I've been to are the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Mexico is somewhere I go to pretty often for stuff like family and all that. And when I was in Canada, I was mostly just passing through. Although I have been to the Yukon before.
Oh, cool.
That's why I think we should make a Fallout game set in the Yukon.
You know, that sounds like a good idea.
Like, you live in a lawless civilization. You fight mosquitoes the size of trucks and fight off mad villagers. And then the bombs drop.
Shit, why has no one thought of that as a setting?
Well, unfortunately, most recent Fallout releases haven't been that good. Like, they had the right idea with West Virginia, and Fallout Frontier had the right idea with, I think, Colorado. Too bad. It kind of got messed up by human error.
Good old Todd.
Well, I mean, Fallout the Frontier wasn't Todd. You see, Bethesda screwed it up because they were motivated by greed. The Frontier developers screwed it up because they were motivated by lust.
I remember pointing this out in a group discussion after someone mentioned the horse armor from Oblivion. I realized that we as a player base just do not let Bethesda live down their errors. We still remember the horse armor fiasco, and Oblivion came out in 2006. There's horse armor, there's Skyrim being released over and over again, and there's Fallout 76 being garbage.
Well, the thing about people forgetting things is that it's not really time that makes people forget, but other events. And how many video games has Bethesda released since Oblivion? In the 15 years since Oblivion's come out, how many have they released?
Well, Skyrim. Okay, let me think. Skyrim,
Fallout 4, and Fallout 76.
No. Wait. Okay, Fallout 3 came out in 2008. I'm sure of that. New Vegas came out in 2010, I think.
New Vegas isn't Bethesda though.
Right. Wait.
New Vegas is Obsidian. It's a different.
Developed by Obsidian, whereas the two I mentioned were developed by Bethesda Game Studios. Did Bethesda still publish it?
I think they might have, but ultimately, game development choices are more important than corporate choices.
Okay. Focusing on developments, the games that Bethesda Game Studios have developed since Oblivion: Fallout 3, Skyrim, Fallout 4, and Fallout 76.
Right.
So 4.
Yep, that's kind of a problem. Like I said, it's not time that makes people forget things, but events.
True.
And every one of those games has had their own fiascos. Like, Skyrim's been released multiple times, which honestly isn't that bad because Skyrim is a genuinely good game.
Uh-huh.
But Fallout 4 had its notorious dialogue.
Yeah.
And of course, Fallout 76 is Fallout 76.
Fallout 3 was actually, well, compared to the original Fallouts, Fallout 3 was lacking, but on its own, Fallout 3 is good, until New Vegas came around.
I just can't stand the green filter over everything.
Yeah.
It's like when people go to Mexico in a movie, except instead of an orange filter, it's, green because radiation.
Yeah, it's like, okay, Washington, D.C. and the Maryland area has been irradiated, so it's just like, it's green now? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
To be fair, Washington, D.C. and the Maryland area looked like that before the bombs dropped. Baltimore's a wild place.
I've been to D.C., not Baltimore, but I have been to D.C. and the Arlington.
You're an American who graduated 8th grade. Everyone's been to D.C.
I guess it's true. But then again, not everyone can afford to travel. But then again,
Right, it's just so popular of an occurrence that's what was that one movie where they still have a Declaration of Independence?
National Treasure.
Yeah, it's such a common occurrence that National Treasure referenced it.
I do want to say this, National Treasure was a genuinely enjoyable movie. Its sequel, not so much.
It had Nicolas Cage in it. Of course it's an enjoyable movie.
Okay, careful with that statement, because Nicolas Cage is either doing really well or shitting the hole straight through the bed.
Yes, and that's why we love him. Nicolas Cage and most actors will probably agree on most things from like a business perspective. But at least he's honest about it, that he's taking these jobs for the money.
There's a hilarious College Humor sketch of being Nicolas Cage's agent, where Nicolas Cage just accepts the most random movie roles. Like, they get more and more absurd as the video goes on, and the agent gets progressively more bitter and intoxicated.
He'll probably show up in the inevitable Silmarillion movie.
Yep.
Oh, that reminds me. Your third clue, loyal audience, to my secret identity. A Silmarillion movie will come out within the next 6 years. And Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson... No, not Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Vin Diesel, actually, is gonna play Melkor. Yes, I can see the future, and this is where I stand. Melkor will be played by Vin Diesel.
I can think of
You
three...
see, Sauron, we're gonna beat the Ironer because they ain't got family. And Ungoliant has a really, really big family, so it works out.
I can think of 3 times where... One time where I predicted a trend, 2 times where I predicted a particular game. I somewhat predicted the release of Marvel Spider-Man in 2018, because I remember at one point thinking, what if Spider-Man 2, the movie, the game, on PS2, but HD and remastered for the current generation? And that's exactly what it is. And at one point I thought, what if a Star Wars game, but with Dark Souls combat? And that's what Jedi Fallen Order is. But one time...
I've been predicting so many things, but I'm pretty sure that future me is stealing my own ideas.
But one time, I predicted the rise of Battle Royale games. This was in 2012, when the popularity of the Hunger Games was at a high. I remember watching the movie in sophomore English class, and observing the moment-to-moment tension, and thinking, that would be a great video game. And I told that to my friend, and he was like...
It was a great video game. Minecraft Survival Games Gang.
I told that to my friend, and he's like, by the time that happens, Hunger Games will be outdated. And he's right about that. But I was also right about the trend of Battle Royale games becoming a thing 5 years before it happened. Was it true that PUBG actually got Game of the Year nominations despite still being in early access?
I have no idea. Frankly, I don't care about PUBG.
Yeah, neither do I. It's just something I heard.
I was never a fan of Battle Royale games. I played Fortnite for a bit back when it was popular, but that's just because all my friends were playing it.
What do you mean back when it was popular? It's still popular.
I meant popular of people who don't get made fun of on the internet.
Oh, okay. So popular with anyone above the age of, what,
12.
15? I was going to say 15 because...
Yeah, 15.
Because you're 14 in 8th grade, so if you're 15, you're in high school. So anyone above 15, Fortnite lost its popularity with.
If anyone remembers, there was a brief time when like high schoolers were really into Fortnite.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when the mobile game came out and all the kids that I thought were cool and a couple teachers were playing it.
I remember...
but then little kids ruined it like they did with Minecraft and Among Us.
I remember one time browsing Reddit. Like, if you've been on Reddit, you realize that Reddit has a very...
Virgins?
Well, yeah, but has a very dispassionate hatred for anything mainstream. And Fortnite is very mainstream, so they have a great dispassion towards it. So much so that I remember seeing a video on Reddit where it was like a middle school dance, and there was a dance competition, but with Fortnite dances. And I remember all the comments being along the lines of, "Oh, look at this, it's so cringy, oh my god, I want to kill myself, nah." And I'm just thinking, all I see are a bunch of kids having fun. What the hell are you doing acting like you didn't do stupid, cringy things when you were in middle school? Get the... I shouldn't cuss. Get off your high horse.
I mean, everyone's allowed to have fun, and if they have fun making fun of children on the internet, then let them do whatever.
Well, they're fucking miserable people if they derive fun from that.
I mean, they're on Reddit. Do you really think they wouldn't be there if they weren't miserable?
You have a point there.
All I can say is I don't think I did anything cringy in middle school because when I was young, I was told don't talk to strangers, and strangers was defined as anyone I didn't know. And incidentally, this I had to reinvent myself in high school before people didn't think of me as the loner. And the reason I am so well versed in niche literature is because I didn't have much else to do in middle school.
I mean, neither did I. All the classes were too easy, and I only had one friend, and everyone else just thought I was weird and cringy, which was true. Speaking of stupid middle school trends, I remember a really dumb yet very persistent trend when I was in middle school. It was called treeking. I'm not sure how it's spelled. I think it was like TRE. I'm not really sure how it's spelled. I was very close to spelling the word trekking. Wait, I think TREKING. I think trekking is 2 Ks. But anyway.
I'm sorry, I think we've gotten really, really off topic. Let's go back to Odd Infinitum real quick. Sorry.
All right.
Speaking of cringe, you know it's really cringe? Faking a personality for whatever reason.
Yep.
Now, let's talk about the companions real quick.
Okay, yeah.
So, if you remember, I convinced you to... I'm not sure if I convinced you or if you already had the idea and I just kind of pushed you to that conclusion, but you decided to include AI companions into the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so far we have 3 of them.
Yep.
Dane, Asher, and Carla.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember how we decided what the companions' roles were going to be, like how they would interact with the game and play?
Well, when it came up with any characters, I thought about one of 2 things. What role would they serve to the player, and what would their roles say about the in-game universe? Like, Boris teaches you the game's mechanics. That's his role. Magellan crafts items for you, or crafts weapons for you and sells them to you. That's her role. General Henderson is a mentor figure. That's his role. With the 3 pilot characters, they all have the same role, assisting you in battle. So I thought, okay, 3 characters to flesh out what the USDF is like as far as personalities go. So from that, we came up with the very manipulative, very underhanded, very goal-oriented, Asher. The very secretive, keeping your head down, Carla. And the very brash, the very heroic, and the very patriotic / has a huge martyr complex, Dane.
I really don't think it was that easy. I think we just sort of said we have 3 companions and their roles just sort of naturally came into being.
I mean, that tends to happen when you have a solid core idea of a game's premise, theme, and universe. It's actually fairly easy to have new ideas just grow from it naturally, rather than coming up with a bunch of disparate ideas and just trying to marry them all together.
Oh, speaking of these companions, let's talk about their actual gameplay real quick.
All right.
So Dane is definitely more supportive of the characters. He feels the role is kind of like a tank. He'll be there to take hits for you. Asher is hyper aggressive and will seek to do the most damage. And Carla's like a combination of the 2. Is it a fair assessment that Carla will play like how a player would approach the game, like with equal focus on offense and defense?
I would say yeah, but I imagine Carla kind of like a hacker.
I can sort of see that, but no, actually no. We agreed that Carla was a scout.
Yeah, so
Carla was originally part of the USDF's scouting wing, I guess the correct term is.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And the scouting wing was disbanded when space stopped being unexplored and became pretty well mapped. And Carla also has a bit of suspicion placed on her because she always seems to survive the events that get the rest of the team killed. And it's pretty weird now that you ask me. Like, she definitely says it's because, she just reacted quick or she saw an attack coming, but honestly, the amount of time she sees attacks coming is that she'd have to be superhuman in order for that to actually make sense. But anyway, maybe Carla would... I actually haven't seen Carla's gameplay yet, so I can't talk much about her. And the other 2 have pretty easy to explain roles. Personally, I'd like to have Asher on my team. mostly because I focus on defense, so if I have a secondary offensive option, then that works for me. Also, Asher is the greatest, and he will totally get the promotion.
Ah, so you're Team Asher.
Of course I'm Team Asher.
That
Asher is the most honest. That's what I like about him.
that's a T-shirt.
Like, do you really,
That's a
do you
T-shirt
really
right
think
there,
Dane
Team
and
Asher.
Oh, yeah, that's a good T-shirt idea. But anyway, do you really think Dane and Carla are being honest with you? Or do you really think that Sned, Boris, Henderson, Magellan, do you think anyone is really being honest with you except for Asher, Burnham, and Mikhail?
I mean, that's kind of the idea of Odd Infinitum. Humans are secretive and unscrupulous, and every problem we experience now is still a problem in the year 3065.
What can I say? Humans will occasionally, actually constantly screw each other over.
Yeah, we've advanced 1,000 years into the future, but human nature hasn't moved an inch.
I mean, human nature hasn't really moved in the 6,000 years that civilizations existed.
Exactly. Try as we might, we cannot subvert human nature at all. Instinct is like bias. If you think you're immune to it, you're wrong.
The real folly is thinking human nature is innately bad.
It's not.
Human nature isn't good or bad, it's perfect the way it is.
I mean, it's self-serving, which it in itself is not good or bad.
It does what it does. Humans wouldn't be the way we are without the sense of being self-serving. Like,
Right.
I think most of our cool inventions would exist if everyone was just being nice to each other all the time.
Well,
Remember from finding neat ways to kill each other, we've also basically figured out green energy.
true, but also remember that there really is no such thing as a completely selfless act. Yes, people do kind things for other humans, but very deep down it's to serve themselves, either monetarily or emotionally or socially. Think about all the social media clout chasers that do things like donate money to a homeless person and then non too subtly take a picture of themselves helping the homeless person. Of course, that's a rather egregious example, but anytime you do choose to donate to a homeless person begging on the street, some part of you does it for yourself, just to make yourself feel better.
Jesus would not have to explicitly state and donate so discreetly that your left hand doesn't know what your right hand is doing, if that wasn't a problem. I think the real question is, we talk a lot about human nature, but how much of human nature do you think aliens share with us? That's probably why humanoid aliens are so accepted in the United Systems. If you have a similar biology, you probably have similar ideas at the very least.
Right. Similar physical appearance is indicative of similar evolution.
Like listening to Somnians, we've spent a lot of time developing their story for whatever reason, but I don't know. Somnians live underground. There's not a lot of resources to go around on the planet, and the energy is geothermal. They probably share a lot in common with humans. They're ambitious, so they can get the most of the limited resources. They're probably perfectly fine with exploiting anything they can get their hands on, because if they don't, then they could be in trouble later. I'd say humans and Somnians would get along pretty well. But now let's say, I don't know, Burnham. Burnham is humanoid, sure, but his biology encourages him to be nomadic. Like, human biology is pretty well suited for a nomadic lifestyle, but they're not biologically compelled to keep moving. But Burnham is in a symbiotic relationship with a separate alien plant, and the plant will actually make him happy. It will release dopamine when he's moving, because it benefits them both. The plant moves around, it can spread its spores, and it has a better chance of reproducing, similar to how dandelions work. So, if Burnham isn't moving, then he won't get any dopamine, and while he's similar to humans, he's pretty different in mindset. So maybe he and humans wouldn't get along that well. Sure, humans get dopamine when they're reproducing, but it's definitely not to the degree of you have a somewhat sapient plant on your back that's just constantly trying to survive.
Yeah, not parasitic, but mutualistic.
Let's make that distinction. A parasite would be something that takes resources from a host and doesn't give anything in return. But something that's symbiotic does get something in return.
Well, I think symbiosis is simply two species exchanging resources, but parasitism is when one of the species draws resources from the other species, often without its willingness. Mutualism is where there's an even trade of resources. For example, the fish that clean out a hippo's mouth. The hippo gets a nice dental cleaning, and the fish get food. There's a third kind, I forget the name of it, where one species uses another species for resources, but one exploits a species for resource, but that species is not harmed in any way.
It's like the difference between a barnacle and... I actually can't think of anything right now. I'm not a biologist. I'm a finance major who, by complete accident, became a professional writer.
You were doing writing before you worked on Odd Infinitum, weren't you?
Yeah, but it was mostly for either school stuff or as like a hobby.
Ah, okay.
I think the most serious writing I did was I was a DM for a D&D group, but after I started writing for Odd Infinitum, I ended up started doing a second writing gig, I guess, for a Warhammer 40k Soulstorm mod.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Unification mod, if anyone listening is interested in it. It's for Dawn of War Soulstorm, which is a real-time strategy game. I don't think any of my stuff's actually been included though yet. Might be a few updates, I don't exactly know. But anyway, there are a couple of other writing gigs I've started since then.
Okay.
I have no idea what's up with Odd Infinitum. I base at an entrepreneurship... Ah, God, my voice is gone.
Mine too, don't worry.
At an entrepreneurship club meeting, I just sort of randomly started talking to Lee, and we started talking about Dark Souls lore, and I have no idea what I said that made him interested in having me as a writer. I think I told him a personal theory I had about the Dark Souls lore, and he liked it, so he asked if I had any experience writing or something like that. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it was definitely something like that. It's just like I was impressed by your ability to theorize something from the tidbits of lore presented, and I was like, okay, I'm designing a game that tells its story very similar to Dark Souls. Would you be interested in writing for it? And you said yeah.
By the way, speaking of Dark Souls lore, I am a firm believer that Gwendolyn is Yorshka's dad. Because if Gwyn was Yorshka's dad, her name would have Gwyn in it. Come on, people.
I mean, well, let's be honest. Gwyn is the equivalent of Zeus in the Dark Souls mythology.
Complete with cheating on his wife.
Yeah, he throws lightning bolts.
May or may not be Velka.
It's like, he throws lightning bolts and he sleeps around a lot.
He does not throw his lightning bolts, he hurls his thunderbolt. Come on now.
Okay.
What? That's the song. You watched Hercules, kid, right?
Yeah, but twice throughout my life and I don't remember it.
On the opening song, they say, and then along came Zeus.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. And then along came Zeus. Yeah, that's become a meme.
Unfortunately, I am not equipped to sing that song.
Well, I'm not the best singer, but there's two kinds of songs that fit within my vocal range. Any song by Johnny Cash, and You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch.
I have actually done some my serious singing before. In high school, I joined a club for some reason. I think it was for volunteer hours, and basically I went to a retirement home on Valentine's Day and sang, I don't know, Valentine's Day songs. Honestly, whoever makes the music choice at retirement homes, they're jerks. Why would you play Danny Boy in a retirement home?
What is that song about?
It's a funeral dirge.
Oh. Yeah, so someone either didn't know or was playing a very sick joke.
I'm honestly pretty sure that most hospice workers absolutely hate the people they work with.
I'd imagine.
This should be encouragement for everyone to treat their kids better. Because if they stick you in a retirement home, you're not coming out of that one.
Yeah.
But anyway, Gwyn and Zeus aren't exactly the best dads.
Yeah, no.
Unless your name is Guinevere.
Yeah, that's abundantly clear.
To be fair, though, if he was a good dad, I probably wouldn't be able to shoot lightning at people.
Well, that's true. Well, wait, I'm trying to figure out why.
Well, if you remember, most Dark Souls miracles that are attributed... Remember that miracles are basically telling of a god's heroic deeds.
Yeah.
And then magic manifests from it. And most of the miracles that are like lightning themed, or I think a lot of miracles that are attributed to Gwyn, with the sole exception of the Sunlight Spear, are actually his son's miracles.
Oh, that makes sense. Wait, as in his firstborn?
Yeah, his firstborn, the Nameless King.
Yep.
Like, the non-Sunlight Spear lightning bolts, that's definitely his son, because why would Gwyn not always use Sunlight Spear?
True.
And Sunlight Stake and lightning storm. Those are things that his son does, but Gwyn doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's not even a case of, oh, they're different games, his moveset's just different, because I don't think the Soul of Cinder uses any of those moves either.
Wait, okay, I'm trying to think. Yeah, Soul of Cinder, as far as Gwyn's sword attacks, Soul of Cinder uses pretty much all of them. He even does the bitch kick and the explosive grab. As far as actual lightning attacks go, I'm pretty sure Soul of Cinder uses Lightning Spear, but I'm not sure in the second phase.
Gwyn and Soul of Cinder have a lot of fire attacks, and I think phase a few lightning spears, but here, let me look it up real quick.
Gwyn doesn't, like, use fire attacks like pyromancies. He just has a sword that's on fire.
Right. Let's see what he does. In his second moveset, he has a sword attack, his plunging sword attack and combo, his funny explosion, his big jump, his kick. Here we go. He has a sunlight spear. He has sunlight spear, and a ghetto version of lightning storm and lightning stake. But
Yep.
they're not the same as the normal miracles because they are clearly sunlight spears that he's transforming.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you get lightning storm from the Soul of the Nameless King, the soul, transposition.
Indeed.
So, this is really off topic, but it's just a thought I've had. Since, we were talking about, I joined the Odd Infinitum team because we were talking about Dark Souls lore. Yes, most miracles, and most offensive miracles except for Sunlight Spear are actually the Nameless King's abilities.
Well, speaking of... Wait for it. Boss weapons!
Boss weapons.
I'm sure at least a few members in the audience will get that reference. But along the topic of diegesis, meaning what things are in an in-game universe, as we just said, miracles are retellings of a story. So that can branch off into how exactly do you get new weapons from defeating bosses in Odd Infinitum? Usually in a video game, it just appears after defeating a boss. But the thing with boss weapons in Odd Infinitum is that they're labeled as alien-inspired. There are several different categories of weapons in Odd Infinitum, two of which are alien and alien-inspired. And the difference is alien weapons are weapons directly derived from, either dropped from an alien or somehow derived from it.
It got ripped off the side of the ship and welded onto yours by Boris.
Exactly. But there's
Not
also
even on the engineering team, he just got there to do it.
But there's also alien-inspired, which is not directly taken from an alien enemy or boss, but it's built based on a particular attack that it does in a boss fight, and using that attack as an inspiration to create a new weapon, hence alien-inspired.
And I'm sure these weird physics-defying weapons will totally not cause any rifts in the science team. I guarantee you will not have a religious schism over science.
I don't know.
I should point out that we've almost ran for about 2 hours now.
Yeah.
I'd say we should use the next 10 minutes to wrap up.
My thinking exactly. I like to keep these to 2 hours.
Let's think. What should the next Oxonian podcast be about? We've talked about general backstory and design choices and specifically things that we thought of before we really started all of this.
Yep.
I think next time we should focus maybe more gameplay-wise. Like
Sure.
I talked a bit about gameplay, but we didn't do much. We've mostly been talking about the things that the things that we considered when making the game, like inspiration, storytelling-wise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe we can bring in a couple of the art guys. I don't think I've really talked to most of our artists.
Okay, so the thing is,
They have weird times.
Well, okay, so Danny lives in Spain, and no joke, like 2 weeks ago, I heard his voice for the very first time, and he's been working on Odd Infinitum for like a little over a year now, like almost a year and a half, and 2 weeks ago was like the very first time I heard his voice. And the reason why is because he lives in Spain, and there's such a huge time difference, 9 hours to be specific.
I also live in Spain, but without the S.
I spy with my little eye, self-diagnosed depression.
I spy with my little eye, an overused joke.
Anyway, let's see, Pine, the sprite animator, lives in Russia, so there's an even bigger time difference. And Piddlesticks, I actually know Piddlesticks in real life, and she lives in U.S. Central Time. Wait, is Kansas in Mountain Time or Central Time? I think Central.
I'm looking up right now. We are Central Daylight Time.
Okay, so yeah, Piddlesticks is the only member of the art team who has a reasonable time difference between me and the artist.
I'm Pacific Standard Time.
So am I.
Lee is... I thought you're Eastern Time Zone.
Well,
Or Central Time Zone.
well, that's when I traveled to Mississippi.
A tiny part of Kansas in the Mountain Time Zone. That just irritates me so much.
Castaigne also lives in Pacific Time Zone, and I also know him in real life.
So what I'm picking up is we're gonna have some really weird schedules in order to actually talk to the other guys.
True.
I think a lot of our Discord user bases are from other countries too.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe we could figure out where everyone's from and ask if one of the other guys could host an event.
Sure.
I don't really get to sleep anyway, so I could probably join.
I mean, I don't sleep much either.
If anyone's wondering why I'm so good at writing cosmic horror, because I already have wacky hallucinations all the time. But anyway. Oh, right, I forgot. I'm going to reveal my secret identity now. I'm gonna need I can't get the soundboard working. My secret identity is... My name is Yoshikage Kira. I'm 33 years old and I'm current. That is an awful reference, I'm sorry. My name is Ben. Hello everyone. I can see the future and I am probably on a watch list.
And as Ben mentioned, my name is Lee. Yes, and my Discord name is a play on my full name, but yeah, my name is Lee.
He is our liaison.
It's pronounced Leeson, but liaison is actually pretty cool. Also, if you look directly in the middle of my name, my Discord name, you'll see the word ass.
Honestly, when I first looked at it, I thought it was ours.
Yep.
My Discord name is Crab. I made it Punished Crab because my sister said I was a 7 out of 10 on the cool scale and that crushed me. So now I'm Punished Crab, a man denied something.
For a while, your Discord profile picture was that incredibly cursed picture of Mr. Krabs.
Yes, I'm quite proud of that one. But now I'm a Crucifix Crab because no one actually has drawn art of a crab being crucified.
Oh, and my profile picture is a 3D render.
Photonegative Wally.
Well, no, it's a 3D rendering of Wally that I made for a 3D modeling class, and he's holding a teapot and looking at it very interestingly.
Wally was a great movie.
It was.
If any of our listeners can take anything out of his podcast, Wally is a good movie. I was just watching it again.
Watch it. I command you to.
With that, I've been your co-host, Alex Vassiane, with 16 Ys.
And I've been your host, Dungus McSwungus.
Speaking of hosts, there's currently a swarm of spiders inside me right now. I gotta go. See you later, everyone.
Alright, peace out. That's a good note to end it on. And hope the spider problem is solved. Peace out until a month from now. Maybe.